So I'm going to pick up where I left off yesterday with the block print I made. And so I'm going to take you guys through the step of printing the first color. And it's hard to see. I didn't do a video for the carving because I thought that would take too long, but the carving is done with these tools where you glide the gouges over the surface of the block and you remove material. Most of you guys have probably done this before. If you haven't done it, on Monday you'll have a chance to practice a bit with that, with the tools, and you'll be able to just play around a bit. So I've done the carving already, and with the reduction cut print that I talked about this process being, you want to remove less material to start. So you want to start with like just a really basic outline. Basically, I would start with a basic outline, and then you can carve more as you go. And I would err on the side of carving less at first, and you'll see why in a second. So I've got my block. Before I mix up the ink, I've got the ink here on this tray, which is just off camera. I'm going to do this registration guide. And the registration guide is because we're printing multiple colors. So what you need to do is, and that's why I wrote 3 prints at the top, is that you're going to do 3 prints with the same size paper. So I have 3 sheets of the same paper. And I have all this paper pre-cut for you guys. So you have 3 sheets. Take one of your sheets, lay it down on the guide, like that, and then you mark the edges, or the corners rather. Mark the corners. Oops, my head in the way. Okay, so now I've got my corners marked. Let's see that. All right. So a little camera adjustment. All right. And then what you do is you take your block and you center the block. And you can measure if you want to, but I usually eyeball it. Okay, trace your edges. Oops, without it moving. So now I know where my block's going to go and where my paper's going to go. All right. And then the next thing I'm going to do is mix up this ink. And you guys can't see it because it's just off camera. I'll move it up a little bit. But I'm just going to start with a green. So I decided based on the landscape I worked on, the landscape I sketched out, and the colors I want to use, that I'm going to start with green. And I'm getting more of a, well, it's more of a gold, because I don't have enough blue. One sec. And if I'm not happy with the color, I can make a few prints and then I can just revise them later. All right, so I'm using block printing ink. Mix up kind of a sort of a I don't know, not a bright green, a very natural looking green, rustic I suppose maybe. All right. Still more on the yellowish side than the green side, but it's okay. Might be an interesting color. All right, and what I'm going to do is, see if you guys can see this better. There we go. All right. So I've got my block. I'm going to ink the block now using the roller. Okay, this all is probably familiar, or at least maybe rings a bell. Doing this at one time, maybe in Art 1, maybe in middle school. Okay, I've got too much ink on the tray. I can tell because the ink is really streaky. It's like the roller is making big streaks of color. That's too much ink. I want to control the amount of ink. So I should have like a flatter. It's hard to see on the camera, but it's kind of like these little like peaks of white, almost like white caps in the texture of the ink, not streaky. It's actually still probably a little bit too much. So I'm just removing the excess. And then as I remove the excess and roll this out, should roll out flatter. There we go. Okay. All right, so then using the roller, I'm going to apply the ink. Sometimes you get little bits of carved rubber that have not come off the block. So you want to remove those with your palette knife or with your fingers, because they'll get into your print, make a mark you don't like. Alright, so you can see that I'm inking the entire block, because this is like a base color. And then once I make my 3 prints, I should probably make more than 3, but 3 is going to be the minimum that you have to make. Okay. Once you make your 3 prints, or once I make my 3 prints, then I'm going to start to carve away more of the block, and then I'm going to print different colors from the same block. So, but I got to make my 3 prints first. Okay, so then I put the block on the registration guide, and then take the paper. This is the hard part. Line it up with the marks. Try to drop it down and get it centered. There we go. Press it a little bit to get it to stick. The ink will act kind of like a glue. And then you can use a spoon to do this actually, just like the flat bottom side of a spoon. And just burnish the whole thing. The spoon helps make really good contact with the block and the paper because of that blunt bottom of it, like the reservoir bottom, like the rounded bottom of it. It makes good contact without like creasing or digging into the paper. The only thing is sometimes if you miss a spot, you'll notice some on the print. So you have to peel it back and check and see if your coverage was good. That looks pretty good. So peel that print. Oops. So there is. Okay, there's my first print. So it's pretty good print quality. My ink quantity was correct. I've got good coverage. It's not over inked and it's not under inked. It's kind of right in the middle. And so that's going to be my base layer, my base color. And then, like I said, I'm going to carve away more parts of the block, and then I'm going to print those over the top, and then it's going to create this layered multicolor effect. Okay, but I'm not going to stop this print session until I've take your block off the registration guide to ink it. So I'm going to re-roll, recharge the roller. Okay, with the right amount of ink, I'm going to re-ink. All right, make sure you got good coverage on your block. that. First color is no problem in terms of registration, but once you start doing second and third colors, then you have to really be precise. So that's why you make multiple prints, so that if you mess up, you've got extras. Check here. Oops. All right, there's print number 2. Okay. So you can see that they're pretty close in their print quality and ink coverage. So now I'm just going to go and do print number 3. And actually tell by my 2 prints that my registration, this is why you measure, I guess. You can see that this edge is thinner than this edge, but it's equal on both, so that's good. As long as it's the same, I can just trim the prints later when I'm done with them. So, all right. So use each other for guidance and for information and technique, whatever, stuff like that. I just have to finish this one last print while I've got the video going, and then I can stop and help you guys.
What other color are you doing? White, probably, maybe.